meditation and the intersection between that and psychology and how that can benefit your life. Now I've moved on to the next thing. I want to incorporate all I've learnt into a product that can help out as many people as possible. I've had a lot of great teachers, very traditional teachers, very contemporary teachers, all of them very valuable in their own respective ways. To understand how I can help you, I want to give you a little bit about my history. Since I've been born, basically, but mostly since I started in the fitness industry. So I'm 37 years of age now. I was born in Canberra, in Australia. For me, a very mundane, not mystical place. Particularly, I felt that as I got older. It has a certain morphogenic field or a certain vibe to it. It's a collection of a bunch of factors, a lot of it being that it's a planned city. It's a city that didn't form naturally like most other of the big cities in the world. They're on the ley line, they're on the energetic hotspots, and people naturally gravitated towards there and generally created something good. Canberra was a planned city. There was a fight, so it was born out of a fight, quite a low vibration to begin with, between Sydney and Melbourne for where would the capital of Australia be, and they chose some spot. I don't think based on energetics or, positive feel-good factors, more about very intellectual thinking. So it's created this city called Canberra. One thing is that it's based in nature. It's a very green, luscious city filled with lots of trees and fake lakes, man-made lakes again. And I had an interesting time growing up there. I was there for about, say, 20 plus years. And at one point I decided to get out. I didn't find the people around me were growing with me. People had a concept of how they wanted to live, which I don't believe was really their concept. It's something they just picked up in the culture. Raise my fingers there, because culture should be, to me, it should be artful. It should be something based on deep values that enhance a person's life. And the culture in Canberra is more an absence of culture, where people are focusing on getting up the next the next rung of the ladder in a public service, or trying to get material gains, and maybe getting pissed out of their brain on a Saturday and Sunday just to numb the pain of not really enjoying their lives, with a lot of exceptions, of course. But generally, I grew quite discontent with Canberra. So I moved up to places where it was warmer, where it was sunnier, where there was different people. Generally found more open-minded people. And really at this time when I moved out, I was also exploring other training methods from the Eastern way, although I'd started meditation when I was quite young. And I think a lot of kids naturally know how to meditate, but whether that's staring at a light bulb, lying on the floor, people thinking they're out of it, they're actually quite in a nice state, allowing them to process things and feel the world and experience. And so I first did my formal meditation. I ran into this kind of thing. I think I was in college, I must have been 15 or 16, and I came across an Alan Watts meditation, a very simple Zen meditation. But looking back, it was quite funny how I was interested in that, and not many other people were, and I hid that about myself, these curiosities I had about life in the so-called spiritual realm, which relates to what I'll talk about later. But basically, I think a lot of our culture in the West discourages that spiritual the spiritual questioning or spiritual exploration. It kind of stigmatizes a bit. Now, there could be a lot of reasons for those, nefarious and just natural and ignorant ones. But generally, the consensus still seems today that if you have ideas outside the norm, or if you think there's more than the material world, particularly in Australia because it's so secular, that you might be crazy or strange. And in a way, we are strange. We are weird. We're all weird, whatever you believe. We're all different. We're all unique, which is a lot of the therapy. Gives a context for a lot of the therapy I'm providing. At the heart of it, really, although I'm using all these tools, it's about finding out who you are and what's going to make you happy, and not just necessarily what you're going to achieve or what you're going to do or who you're even going to hang out with. Much deeper things. The deeper things aren't necessarily more important or better than those other things. I think a balance is good. But for me, and for a lot of the teachers that I've been attracted to and trained under, they've always had a good sense of who they are, a good sense of their self. And if we haven't spent much time exploring that, then those words might not mean much at this time. What do you mean? Who am I? Or what do you mean finding a deeper dimension of yourself? Maybe that's just a concept for some people, and for some people it's a bit more than a concept. And for some people, it's not a concept at all. They know who they are outside that concept, and that's really where we're going for, because ultimately happiness and joy doesn't come from outside. It's not necessarily a linear thing, like a cause and effect thing. There's a state that the Taoists call, and the yogis call it as well, and many different traditions call it. But one of the best phrases I've heard is a reasonless joy. Just being happy for no reason, because that's our natural state. And because we're living so unaccord with our nature, it seems far-fetched to say happiness is our natural state. But if you look at a lot of people that are living naturally, they're generally quite happy people, hunter-gatherer tribes and so on, and different cultures around the world. And even you might know someone who's like that, and when you look at their life, you can usually see why. They're quite connected to nature, and thus they're connected to natural principles. And being connected to natural principles and having them embedded in your life, whether that's just by accident or whether it's a conscious decision to try and mold your life and to go away from concepts about what your life should be and how you should do your life, and going in instead. Really, the point is that there is a path, it's clear, but you're not necessarily going to find that path through people who are still largely stuck in their intellect. Now, psychology and all these different, basically, healing methods can offer a lot of value. That person-to-person connection, that relationship, can do a lot. But it's not enough. It's not enough because we're so disconnected from our nature, from living naturally, from living our life in accord with who we are. And ultimately, we're all the same thing, all made of the same stuff. But that force that expresses itself through us comes through uniquely. So, listen to my first meditation back when I was 16. It's an interesting experience. Interesting is not quite the right word, but I definitely was attracted to it, and definitely felt like I was onto something. I then went into fitness training shortly after I graduated. I graduated quite young, when I was still 17, from year 12, from high school or college as it is in Canberra. And I needed to go to university, apparently. That was my parents' idea. That was what a lot of my friends were doing. I didn't really want to do it at the time. I actually wanted to just play basketball. I had a dream then, and a dream's a good thing. A dream's actually quite central to our happiness. It's important. But anyway, as I was quite young, went to university, started studying psychology. Never really asked much questions in school, just stayed within the conceptual boundaries of what you should argue about and what you shouldn't. But sooner or later, I found myself arguing certain things, and it got more and more obvious to me. Questions that I was quite curious about that I thought would find to answer within the realms of psychology in my classes. Most of my teachers would basically say I'm wrong without really giving me any reasoning behind it. I had one good lecturer. He was a hippie. He was quite onto it in a lot of things, in a lot of ways. But I started experiencing frustration. One of my first frustrations was getting a fail for an assignment, which was not really radical these days, but back then, going back about 20 years, trying to make an argument that testosterone causes aggression. And my professor didn't like that argument for whatever reason, for whatever paradigms they were in. Couldn't really argue about a grade for that one, but I genuinely experienced that more and more in psychology, and over the next 15 to 20 years, like even till now, where people live their life and then thus do their healing work or their job, whether it's psychologist or whatever you are, through the paradigms you've been taught. In a way, it's a programming, and a lot of those people help a lot of people. They're very smart, but they don't go outside of those concepts. For me, since I'd been boozing and then taking drugs and alcohol lately, a lot of partying, I seemed to keep wanting partying, and some people didn't seem to want to party that much. They kind of seemed boring to me. But through that process and my own natural process, I was opening up and not living so conceptually. I realised, okay, despite the stigma on substances, they're actually doing a lot of good for me. Breaking out of my comfort zones. I was always very shy, introverted, had trouble forming relationships, particularly women, just mostly due to just like that anxiety, that apprehension about connecting to people. But through the drugs and the alcohol and this tendency to more and more explore life outside concepts and what I should or shouldn't be doing, I started training as a fitness professional, and then while I was at uni, very quickly getting a job in the fitness industry in personal training, which is a big growth curve for me, pushing myself outside my comfort zone. And then not really going to many of my classes for like a year or two, because I enjoyed the money is one thing, but I was growing so much more than I was at university. I didn't seem to be getting any answers in psychology. No one in there seemed any more happy than other people. And I was enjoying making friends and, finding myself, getting stronger, developing all these qualities within me. I eventually went back to psychology to finish my degree, and a lot of it was I learned what doesn't work. I learned some basic things as well. But for me, who at this time I wasn't that happy, I was happy sometimes, but really not that happy a lot of the time. I thought there must be something else. There's got to be more out there. And I got a lot out of the fitness training, the work I was doing with myself with fitness, exploring all sorts of different methods, but also coaching other people. I got a lot out of that, but I left because it felt quite shallow to me. We were only working on a surface level with people. I mean, with the exceptions, there's people who had no training in psychology that were way better than with people than a lot of mental health professionals, and they really had an ability to connect with clients. And I saw how important that was then. And some people could naturally do that, and they tried hard to do that and tried hard to help people. But I wanted to explore psychology more because I thought, well, psychology in our culture is always pointed to as that's what helps people. Psychotherapy, cognitive behavioral therapy, all these sorts of techniques and paradigms. I didn't realize, and only looking back now, that lots of people actually could provide a better therapeutic effect than those people that only trained in psychology and not really lived life and self-reflected and lived from their heart and who they are. I'll fast forward this because I don't want this video to be too long. I spent the next 10, 12, 13 years doing social work, counselling, and teaching as well. Something in me was always attracted towards working with kids. I'd had other jobs as well on the side, for school care or looking after kids. And in ways I felt like I was good at that naturally. I was also curious about these kids who seem more happy than us, and that we seem to be the ones screwing them up. And then we're the ones who think we're helping them a lot of the time, but actually they're still in that natural state. They haven't had so much conditioning and various traumas and things from society at that age. So there's still something natural and beautiful about that. Got a lot out of teaching, but so confined within maybe one of the most compressive or repressive systems that people can work in. And that goes back to a lot of things. The curriculum is actually based and created by very wealthy people, corporate entities, dating back to the Dale Carnegie Association. And basically our curriculum is still heavily based on how do we make someone a productive member of society, which seems like a good idea, but yes, we want these kids to grow up and be harmonious, but is it only about being productive and contributing to an economic system, or do you want them to be happy and to grow? The curriculum's not really designed for that. And generally in teaching, unfortunately, although a lot of teachers feel this, the people who end up running it are generally the people who believe in conformity. They don't have too much insight into who they really are, so they carry out the curriculum and the processes and the repressive punishing methods. It's factory education made in the industrial age, for the industrial age, to get people off the farms and out of their natural habitat, which they enjoyed, to go in and build big factories for whatever reason. Maybe all for the good of the long run, but initially they couldn't get them off their land. They couldn't get them off their lifestyles. Their connection to nature was good. It was very fulfilling to them, so they used all sorts of devious techniques to lure them into the factories. You can look at Ireland for a history of that. It's very well documented, but it's pretty obvious when you look at it everywhere. The school system's not really set up for the kids. It's set up for other means, for other purposes, and I don't think that really is in line with the best interests of children. And us as adults who have been through that, we may look at it and go, we've gained certain skills and abilities and some sort of education to function in everyday life, but a lot of us aren't happy. It's because we've gone so far against nature through making systems like the ones in school and making systems like the one in psychology that tell you your problem must be because you don't fit into the norm. If you don't fit the norm, then you've got a pathology, rather than the other way around. Rather than the outside world's being constructed in such a way that is not conducive to people's mental wellness or mental health, we blame the individual ultimately. So I spent all this time in these various social works, very much a system as well, very similar problems to teaching and psychology. And I explored other jobs, always curious as a youngster about people's different careers, tried carpentry, I did retail when I was younger, had many different jobs. And all through this stage, particularly early on, it was a lot of drugs and alcohol the whole time. I was doing all the right things according to psychologists, but still I wasn't happy. Something was massively missing. But as I did these practices, these Eastern practices and the Western practices, I developed more and more insight into what was going on. And at the same time, I wouldn't be here without them, because although I was doing some damage to my body, the training's so powerful that I'm at the stage now, and have been for several years, where I can still drink alcohol if I want. I'm an alcoholic. Is a lot of people have been put into that box. These things aren't a problem anymore because I'm living by natural principles. It's taken a while for me to understand the big question of who I am, and that's an ongoing process. For some people, they use these methods and techniques, Tai Chi, weights, etc., develop personal practice, and they get really good really quick, and then they're good. Part of my growth process has been to really delve into, through experience, all facets of what contributes to happiness. So I've had to experience what my clients would experience. I've had to experience the deep connection of alienation and depression and anxiety, and maybe sometimes a little bit of mania in terms of needing to have that big experience on the grog or alcohol, on the grog or drugs every weekend years ago. Needing to feel like what it feels like to be on SSRIs or other psychotropic medication for your mental health. Needing to experience that I'm not an Easterner. I got a Western psyche, so we can't just copy those methods. I've tried just doing pure Tai Chi and doing something like pure Tai Chi hours and hours a day, and then trying to live in a very traditional way and just go and do my job and just be of service and all those things. In the right context, those things could be helpful, but I had experienced fully to the nth degree what it is like to live in a concept, whatever concept that may be, and how that's not conducive to happiness. And being at the point now where I live my life through my insight I receive from my practice, just my ongoing awareness of who I am. I have a lot of life experience now. And now I see that we need to combine these two worlds. It's not accident that they're quite different, and are quite different 100 years ago, thousands of years ago. They evolved in their own context. Quite an interesting thing just to look at that. But our society wouldn't be the way it is if not for certain historical developments and where we were on the planet, our weather, the type of farming we did. And the East, China, India, Cambodia, those countries wouldn't be where they are if not for certain historical developments, evolutionary developments related to the environment they're in. But both sides produced jewels. They produced such beautiful fruits. And both sides are looking at one another, well, at least some people are, to look at the benefits of both. And obviously the East has been looking at the West for a long time now. China's been looking at the West a long time and bringing in what's useful to them in their culture and for their people. Having that understanding of the Qi, although that's being lost somewhat now. And on the West, on the other hand, got all these amazing technological developments, and for a while, a semi-functional government system, and ideas of democracy that haven't traditionally existed in the East, which they're learning now. We've had access, a lot of us have had access to a lot of material resources, material wealth, like living in Australia. It's a very wealthy country which provides a lot of benefits. It also allows you to develop in certain ways because you're given more and more resources to develop as a person. You're not out in the field working 12 hours a day. You can focus on yourself, your development. You can ponder questions. You can't do that if you're stuck in poverty, just cultivating rice all day. Not that if you're cultivating rice all day, you're not evolving and growing and having deep insight into nature and developing all these qualities. Point is, we're at a time in history now where these two cultures are merging, yin and yang. The West very yang, very ego-driven, achievement-driven. Let's make stuff. Let's keep increasing technology no matter what the cost. And the East, the yin, reserved, have patience, relaxation, just relaxation alone. We could learn a lot from relaxation from these cultures, because we're all stressed out of our minds generally. They're coming together, the yin and yang. And in what I do, and through my life experience and continuing reflecting on this, try to develop this, in a sense, this technology, to see, well, how can we adapt those Eastern methods, combine them with the best of our Western methods, whether that's from psychology or from our weight training, which is unique in the West. How can we combine all these things with the ability to relax and be within yourself and use the technology of the Qi cultivation, which really that's what's going to deliver the most benefits, is the Qi cultivation combined with weight training. That's what's going to make us feel good. And what makes us feel good, the Chinese medicine has a completely different understanding and a much more evolved one. They weren't limited to reductionistic thinking like we are in the West with these paradigms we're really suffering from. Qi is everything. Everything is made of Qi, absolutely everything. If we know how to work with Qi, we know how to resolve our traumas, we know how to develop vitality, we know how to relax. This body is like a computer. It's like a computer in the sense that we have meridians in our body that circulate our energy in our blood. And if those wires, or in this case in our body, those meridians get blocked, then we experience pain. It's that simple. Any pain, emotional, physical, spiritual, is caused by a blockage. So if we know how to resolve our blockages, the really potent, strong techniques from the East, and then we combine it with the West techniques of exercise, we get a supercharged result. We can face anything in life and develop the confidence to face anything in life. And then ultimately, we can be living the life that we truly want, not the life we think we want or been taught to think we want. We can experience the life we truly want from deep down within. And when you're on that path, there's a deep sense of fulfillment and gratitude, and also love. Love for everything, but love because you can love yourself, and you're going to be connected to the people in a deep way. Not just connect to people, but connected to everything ultimately. And you can't get that through just trying to approach your mental health problems through the mind. You can't do it. The mind is limited by our bodily health, our spiritual health. So if we correct the body, then we know how to use this. But we got to go through the body first. We're so disembodied, we're so up here, we're not really feeling anything that's going on. Any idea can seem good or bad or whatever, because we don't have internal sense of reality that comes through the body. We're living a physical existence right now. That's really a shortened version of what all this training can do for you. But ultimately, hopefully you can feel what I'm saying rather than what's just coming out of what's coming out of my mouth. It's an energy, it's a frequency. If you like it, if you want more with it, I can show you how to cultivate on your own, not become dependent, so you can empower yourself to live the life you want to live. And most people I've met, I don't think I've met anyone who said they didn't want to be happy. And that's what all this is about. Play, feel, chi. We'll have a good time. We'll play. We won't work out in a narcissistic way and hurt ourselves, and no pain, no gain. We'll enjoy ourselves. We'll play with chi. We'll first feel the chi. Feel, what is this chi I'm talking about? What is this chi Michael's talking about? Then we've discovered chi just in one session. Then we can work with it. And then we can apply it to our life. Okay, I have anxiety. Okay, this is how we work with the chi in the body to cure anxiety. This is how we work with depression. And the whole time we're doing this, we're developing a better sense of what our dream is, what's going to make us happy. So if it sounds like you're something interested, if it sounds like it's something you're interested in, please reach out to me. Any questions, please ask me. And thanks for listening.